So, it's taken me a while to get this second episode out. I've been busy with a lot of things and currently working on mastering my time management. From this point onwards, I want every episode to have at least 3 stories, though that's only if I'm able to find 3 good ones every time, which is of course up to the Redditors. I'm also trying my best to get better equipment for this series because I really do want this thing to succeed where every other series I've ever done has failed. And if you're wondering, yes, I really do mean everything I'm saying here, but I am also trying to increase the length of this video as much as possible because I want to build an audience with a long retention span. So prepare yourself for the future. An Unforgettable Night from Zilla's EDO Wing 3583. In 2021, I was involved in the murder case of my childhood friend's father. I slept around their house frequently, 3 times a month on a Saturday. My friend and his father never got along, mostly due to the fact that his father was an abusive alcoholic, but they never argued in front of people. Whether it was to save face or any other reason, I don't know, but I never witnessed it myself. This is just what I was told about him. Me and my friend were playing on his PS4 at the time, and his dad called him downstairs. I assumed he'd be back quickly, so I just paused the game and went on my phone for a bit. But they kept shouting at each other for so long I got tired of it. I turned the game back on and put the TV up louder, close to max volume. I still heard them, but it mostly sounded like muffling, until 20 minutes later, I hear what sounds like a glass bottle crack. I was scared at the time and didn't know how to respond, so I just stayed in the room for 30 minutes, but eventually, I decided to just go fucking check on them since my friend still hadn't come upstairs. I go downstairs, and his dad was leaking blood from the back of his head in the conservatory. I thought maybe they argued and it just resulted in my friend hitting his dad and now he's unconscious, but the guy was dead. There was no pulse. I could go on and on about how we acted, but I'll skip that. We hid the body in a barrel, similar to a white oak American barrel. We were young, but we did know it would be found out eventually. It was mostly just to pass the time. I was also worried I'd be sent to jail, and I didn't want to confess I was even a part of this, so I was gaslit by my friend to do it or else I could suffer too. I wasn't in the right headspace, and was young, so I believed everything my friend told me. The body was put in that barrel to cover the smell, and there were no openings aside from the cover. Again, I'll skip that. Around 3 days later, my friend turned himself in. I didn't get a charge because they used the fact I was young and mentally unstable in that situation. And my ex-childhood friend, who I'm not allowed to contact again, got 6 months in juvie. Because it was accidental and the father was abusive, they put it on record as it being self-defense. But the crime was very close to being put as manslaughter since it was hidden for a few days and not longer. He was lucky and said he was just scared of his father killing him in that moment, though I know he did it in a fit of rage. As someone who grew up with an abusive father, this story was really fucked up for me to read. It's obvious that Zealous' childhood friend definitely had a rough upbringing, considering the fact he was scared his father was going to kill him. Zealous didn't say what state they were in, so I don't fully know what their self-defense and manslaughter laws look like. The killing was accidental, like he said, and the reason why it was labeled as self-defense and not manslaughter is because the body was hidden for only a few days. When you Google it, it says a few days is 3 to 4 days. I understand that both of them were scared and Zealous wasn't in the right headspace. Plus, they were kids. But they should have just called the police and explained what happened. This isn't the first time something like this has happened. The upstairs bedroom from Shy Little Jellyfish. Me and my family used to live in a 2-floor house. The second floor was made of wood, while the first floor had been cemented down. However, I didn't quite understand at first why it was built this way. This was abroad. As a 7-year-old, I didn't pay much mind to it. At the time, it had only been me, my older sister, and a maid, since my parents were both working at the time and would often come home late at night. We had spent most of the day in the downstairs area playing with toys when my older sister asked me to go with her to the second floor. We had never been up there because my parents had given specific instructions never to venture up there without them. But knowing my stubborn sister and her curiosity, she would go up there with or without me. I was reluctant at first since I was the scaredy cat out of the both of us, but she eventually persuaded me. Our maid was busy washing the dishes at the time. She didn't notice that we had left the living room to head to the upstairs floor. On our way up there, the floors were already creaking, and you could smell that it was old. When we saw the second floor, it had looked like time had stopped and we were in a different period. The second floor seemed untouched. There was a rocking chair to the side of the room next to a window, and a crib a few feet away, as well as a small cabinet. From the looks of it, it had obviously been a nursery. We started to look around as my sister walked over to try the rocking chair, then checked the crib. A few minutes had passed, and I had noticed my sister hadn't moved from where she stood. I walked up to her to see what was going on. She had been staring at what seemed like a large brown stain in the middle of the crib. As she went in to touch it, I could feel the hairs on the back of my neck began to stand up. I felt this surge of panic and grabbed my sister by the collar and dragged her right out of there. I didn't know what it was that made me make a run for it while I dragged my sister with me, but something about the crib made me feel incredibly off, and it only heightened when my sister went in to touch it. That night as we ate dinner, I confessed to my parents that we had explored the second floor, despite being told not to, and was scolded as we ate. After everything had calmed down, I asked my mom why we were prohibited from being up there, since we were only going to live in the house for a couple months before we would eventually move out to our permanent home. We asked the owner the following day over the phone. Turns out that the owner of the house had lost her daughter and grandchild in this same house on the second floor. She had come home to her psychotic husband, who had smothered their baby with a blanket because she wouldn't stop crying. As her daughter went to get her husband out of the way to grab her baby, he had been caught off guard and had elbowed her in the face, causing her to hit her head onto the floor. Her daughter and grandchild didn't survive the incident, and the husband was put in jail. The owner hadn't moved anything on the second floor since the incident, saying she felt something was up there that felt angry since her daughter and grandchild's death. She had wanted to get the house renovated and have the second floor destroyed to turn it into a one-floor home to hopefully be able to rent it out, which is why she hired my parents and allowed us to temporarily live here. But it had strict instructions not to go up to the second floor, but wouldn't disclose what happened as it drove people away. Needless to say, we left that house earlier than the agreed stay and haven't been back there since. This Redditor said this story could be a low-budget film, and I concur. This could be made into a short horror game where the angry ghosts of the slain mother and daughter chase the two sisters around the house, man. This honestly sounds like a game 8-Bit Ryan would play. Terror Knocks at Night from Celestial Bloombud. Hi, first time poster for this kind of thing. I, a 26-year-old female, have lived in my trailer home about 45 minutes north from San Diego for just over 3 years now. I had roommates up until January when we put the home on the market and everyone but me moved out. The house is mostly barren, and I keep everything locked at all times because I don't live in the best neighborhood. Plus, I'm a bit paranoid. I'm moving to upstate New York in 3 days, which is why everything is barren. I do have 4 cats. 2 are mine, and the other 2 are my sister and brother-in-law's. And I promise this all pertains to my story. Last night, I put on pink/brown noise to help me fall asleep. Just the noise, no books or stories. Within a few minutes, I was out like a light. The cats were asleep in the bed with me. Around 2 to 3 a.m., as we don't know, I didn't check, the cats and I were startled awake by a loud knocking, not quite pounding, on my carport door. At first I thought maybe it was part of a dream. I have quite vivid dreams, so I pulled my blanket closer and kept my eyes closed. The knocking had stopped after a little bit. Then there was a pause, and then it began again at the front door. This caused one of my cats to claw into my chest. Now I knew I was awake, and it was real. The knocking stopped again and moved back to the carport door, but this time I heard my name being called. Not called by just anyone though, but by my birth father. Now, I haven't spoken with this man in 7 years. A chill ran through my body and I felt nauseous. How did he know where I lived? Why was he here at such an outrageous hour? And what in the holiest and hells did he want? The voice calls again and again, and I realized that the voice patterning isn't quite right. It was too dull and flat, like a robot using my birth father's voice box. The knocking is also rhythmic, and the chill turns into a spike of terror. I pull one of the cats close and pray to the fates that they don't make a sound. I whisper, "You're not welcome here. You're not welcome here. You're not welcome here," over and over. I'm pagan, and I do believe in cryptoids and supernatural beings. I know the rules, though. Don't whistle at night, never step into the center of a rock/mushroom ring, and don't go out into the woods or desert alone at night. I've heard the tales of skinwalkers, especially because I listened to stories from Mortis Media and the Lore Lodge on YouTube. I've lived in this house for 3 years without any issues, though both my sister and I had placed protective barriers around the house, my pagan rituals and her hoodoo. My theory is that those barriers had eroded over the few months my sister had been gone. All the people coming into the view the house and the deep cleans that have been done almost every week. Now that I'm almost gone, the protection is almost gone too. I hope it doesn't come back again. I can't emotionally handle hearing that voice again, or experiencing that gut-wrenching fear. I already have insomnia and haven't been feeling well lately. I just want to sleep. The only logical explanation I have for this story is that Celestial experienced auditory verbal hallucinations. AVH can speak about very personal matters and therefore be very frightening, and it is known to occur in conditions such as paranoid schizophrenia, borderline personality disorder, PTSD, and others. Now, I don't know if Celestial is diagnosed with any of these, of course, but she did say that she's a bit of a paranoid person. But I could be wrong, and maybe supernatural beings are real and can imitate familiar voices. And that concludes episode 2 of Real Reddit Horror. I've been Craxo Spinner, and until the next story, I'm just in my room.